Hey everybody, this is Andrew from Movie Clips, and we're at the LA Film Festival. I'm here to bring you a review of Cuba Gooding Jr.'s latest film, Life of a King. Now, this is about Eugene Brown, who was incarcerated for 18 years, then was released in the 90s, lived in Washington, D.C., worked as a janitor at a local high school, before building a community chess club. It's written and directed by Jake Goldberger, and it's based on a true story. Now, this is pretty much a stand and deliver story through and through. There's really nothing that you won't see coming a mile away from it, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I have to be honest, while I was watching this film, we're seeing all of the elements kind of come into play. Cuba Gooding Jr. led a life of crime. He's coming back. He's looking for straight work. He's trying really hard to get in contact with his son and daughter again. His daughter is now trying to be a lawyer. How that happened from, having a father like him, I don't know, but it's pretty cool. He's trying to get in contact with them again. They're not really talking to him. So he gets work through a friend at a school. And at one point, while he's a janitor, the principal actually asks him if he could sit in on detention. And it's at that point that we start getting those stand and deliver moments. He's sitting in, and he asks if anybody wants to play some chess. Little chess game starts going on. Now he is kind of giving out life lessons. Think before you move seems to be the underlying theme of the entire film. It seems to be the tagline, really, of the movie. And he starts to build relationships one by one, and pretty much, like I said, everything falls in line in a very predictable, albeit satisfying way. I have to say, Cuba Gooding Jr. I like a lot. I think he's incredibly charismatic. He's had a pretty rough time the past few decades, which I think is unfortunate. I really like this guy, and he is carrying the movie through and through here. There's another actor, Dennis Haysbert, that I really love, who kind of is in two key sequences in the movie. He was an old jail buddy with Cuba Gooding Jr. It's really of a cameo more than anything, but he delivers when he's asked to perform in a great way too. Yeah, the writing of the film is a little broad, I have to admit. It's a little too heavy-handed. It's a little too obvious. It's one of those films where people only say things when it really matters, and people only say things that absolutely get from point A to point B. Nobody really seems to have their own personality outside of the direct consequences of what is required to get to the next scene, which is the kind of thing that's always unfortunate. I even thought Man of Steel did that most of the time for that film. It's unfortunate because these actors, really all across the board, the kids especially, bring it. They really do. They I think, are capable of much more. In particular is Malcolm M. Hayes, who plays Tahim, who's kind of like the prodigal chess student who didn't know he was really, capable. It's an urban school, it's an urban environment, and he never really thought he was capable of ever achieving any kind of success in anything, let alone chess. So Eugene kind of uses him as his main champion, even though this is based on Eugene Brown's life, and if you look him up, he's actually championed a dozen or so really prominent chess players from this club that he started. So we really follow Tahim as he makes these kind of choices. He's at the classic cinematic crossroads: choose the life of crime or follow Cuba Gooding to a good, decent route. And it's pretty heavy-handed, I have to admit. At one point, one of his friends, something bad happens to him in the life of crime. It's played kind of a little too broadly, a little too obviously, and it seems to really just be a life lesson for him as opposed to being something that genuinely seems to occur in this world. It seems almost specifically guided towards giving Tahim a lesson, which I always kind of resent stuff like that when it happens in movies. It always seems forced, and so that kid's death is only meant cinematically to give him purpose to move on. It never feels like it has any consequence beyond that. Quite frankly, I would almost be dozing off most of the time because it's so predictable and it's so kind of cookie cutter in most other areas. But you know what? There's a chess tournament at the end. I didn't even think that this would be the kind of movie that would have a Mr. Miyagi teaching the Karate Kid kind of big showdown at the end, but it happens, and they're playing a bunch of guys, and they're playing a bunch of preppy upschool kids, and you just think, like, by the time the big showdown between Tahim and this other dude happens, who's like a Grandmaster State champion or whatever, you do kind of get that welling up in the stomach. You do kind of, the butterflies get in there, even though it's not really earned, but they are playing the archetypes of this kind of stand and deliver movie, that by the time it gets to that point, you can't help but feel a little flustered inside, and then you think, oh, darn it, I want to dislike some of this stuff. But when that happens, you can't help but say this movie is working on some level. With that all being said, let's roll up and add the movie clip scoreboard. So I'm going to give Life of a King a 66 out of 100. Now, that's actually better than it may even deserve, but when all the archetypes and all the things that you predict add up, and that last 30 to 40 minute stretch, it does kind of work, and it does kind of swell you up, so I can't really say I had a bad time watching this film because of it. That being said, of course, the writing and the characterizations really just need a lot of work. It's the kind of movie that when you watch, you say, wow, that's a really good first draft. That's a really solid first draft. Now, if only I can get somebody who could add some spice and some characterizations to it, then maybe we really have something. Ultimately, though, the life of this movie lies solely on Cuba Gooding Jr. and a little bit on Malcolm M. Hayes playing Taheem. He's a really talented young actor. It does all rest, though, on Cuba Gooding Jr.'s charismatic shoulders. He and Malcolm M. Hayes playing Taheem really carried the film forward, really push it beyond the kind of mediocrity that's there on the page. And their charisma is something to watch out for. I swear to God, I really want Cuba Gooding Jr. to do really strong material again. And this is a step in the right direction. So with that, check it out. You'll come out with a smile on your face. There are probably better movies out there. We'll tell you about them soon. I'm Andrew at the LA Film Festival. Talk to you next time.